first stop on our tour. This is Clarendon Courtyard. It is one of 4 courtyards in the market. Now, these courtyards weren't always so pretty. In about 1970s, this was actually a giant garbage heap. All of the restaurants would just throw their garbage in here, and it was that way for quite some time until the City of Ottawa had a problem with it. So the City of Ottawa told the NCC, who are the property owners here, to clean it up. And the NCC didn't want to clean it up because they didn't want to make a public space if it was their property. So they argued for a while until the NCC finally gave in and created the arts courtyards. Now normally they would have art filling up the walls here, and there'd be like pictures and paintings and then kind of a description of what they are. This year they haven't put very much up. I'm not exactly sure why, but usually it would be full of art. That's why they're called the arts courtyards. We're going to continue out this way. We're going to talk about one of the buildings here.
Okay.
This courtyard in particular has had a pretty rough history.
Okay, thanks.
If you go to one of the buildings, kind of talk about that. Now, if I talk too fast, you have any questions in French or English, I can answer you.
Okay, thank you.
And if you just have a general question, I can also answer.
Okay, thank you.
So behind me is the Courtyard Restaurant. Now, like I said, the entire area has kind of had a rough history, but Courtyard Restaurant actually claims to be haunted. I don't know, never seen a ghost there, that's what they say, so we'll kind of get into that. Like I said, these used to be hotels. After that, in about 1870s, they were turned into barracks. Now the reason why the barracks were here was because of the Fenian crisis. The Fiends were Irish protectors who would basically go around Ireland partying and doing whatever they wanted as long as they were protecting Ireland. Now when they came to Canada, because they were kicked out by the Catholics, they wanted to continue doing that here, and that was not okay with anyone here because you don't want your stuff stolen. So the military came here to keep them under control. Now because of that, we actually had our last military hanging in this courtyard. It was one of those archways behind us. We don't know which one because we're really bad at keeping records, but we do know he was killed for treason. So that would have been in the 1870s. In 1875, these guys all turned back into hotels, and when Courtyard Restaurant was a hotel, it actually was burning to the ground when 3 ladies, they decided, they had made it out safe, but they had forgotten their fur coats. So they decided to go back into the burning building to get their fur coats. And unfortunately, they all lost their life that day. So they're all haunting here. Now, in 1911, these guys changed once again, and all the buildings became little hospitals. Now, this was because of the typhoid epidemic that came to Canada. Now, when the Irish famine hit, we got even more people from Ireland coming over, and with them, they brought typhoid. So we needed a place to house them all. I'll kind of show you where our first hospital was. It wasn't big enough to house as many people were getting sick, so they needed extra space here. And then after that, they turned back into hotels. So always going back to hotels. Now they're apartments, but same kind of thing. Now what's cool about Librairie du Soleil is that it's the only fully French bookstore in Ontario. Now all of our other bookstores are either fully English or half and half. This is the only one that is fully French. It is actually a chain that comes from Quebec, but we're lucky enough to have one on the side. Guys kind of turn behind you. We have that beautiful totem pole right there. Now the totem pole was actually made in 1991, but it was not made here. So it was actually first started in Nova Scotia, and then it was shipped to every province, and they would carve something into it and then ship it off to the next one. The reason why we have it in the market is because it was a project done by the School of Art, which is right next to it. So all of the carvings were made by Indigenous people, and they're supposed to represent the culture of Canada. People though, and there are also some cultures that are noticeably missing. but they tried their best. Now, one would think because the maple leaf is on the top of the totem pole that it is the most important object, but it's actually not. The most important symbol on a totem pole is the bottom of the totem pole. So it's the raven usually, and that's because it represents wisdom. So the maple leaf is actually the least important thing on that totem pole. Down in Sussex, it takes a right on Wellington. That is why they are both paved first and why it's so expensive to be on there.
Enjoying these people?
I am indeed. How are you doing? So now right across the street you'll see this beautiful castle looking like building right here, right? So it was actually started in about 1890 and finished in 1915. That is the Connaught Building. The Connaught Building was made for the Duke of Connaught, and it was the first home to our border security. Now, like I said, Sussex is a very expensive street to be on. So the border security actually couldn't afford to be on this street. And because of that, they had to move. But there was one entity that could afford that spot, and that is the CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency. So they're the ones who take the taxes every year. I'm not going to say how they can afford that building, but I think you kind of got it. Now behind you, you'll see the Clarendon Tavern / Modern Shop. What's cool about this building is it was actually the first home of the National Gallery of Canada. It's now moved down the street, and we'll see it a little later. But this was its first home. It had about like 100 paintings, and it was the basis of all of our other museums. So we just like to point this kind of out. We're going to head up Sussex here. Why the Connaught Building took so long to build is actually because of the war. They had to stop in between building it just because they had no money. They were fighting overseas and they had no cash to spend. Once they got their money back after the war, they were able to finish it off.
But I think the government gives a lot of money to do it.
They did. It was a very nice building, and honestly, it was made for a duke, so we do kind of spend a lot of money on royalty. Now it's the CRA building, so it's really funny. It looks like a castle on the outside. If you actually go inside, it's about like 1970s offices.
Wow. Okay.
So the designs inside are very different from the outside.
Okay, good. Very interesting. So a lot of these places actually get their clothing and stuff from France or Italy and so on, and that's why they can charge so much money. But they're all nice places to shop. I'm just a student and poor and can't do it. So, very nice places. And we've got a nice thing going on tonight. We've got a fashion night that starts at 6, I believe, or 5:30. Where you can actually do tours of some of our clothes. Not all of them will be on the expensive part of town. The other ones will be on the non-expensive part. A little further down here, there are also some clothing stores within the market. Now across the street from you, you will see that beautiful staircase there. So every year, the NCC, in partnership with the Heritage Canada, redoes the painting on the stairs. They actually hold a competition to see who's going to be able to do the artwork. Now this one actually just appeared in about June. It was a little late. It is by Georges Bertrand, and it's called Heat Wave. It's supposed to represent the melding of different cultures in Canada to represent a harmony. So yeah, it's very pretty. It just was put in this year. Okay. Now behind you, we have the Millennium Fountain. The Millennium Fountain was actually given to the Byron Market from the government in 2000, and that was to represent a time when we didn't have running water. Now what's cool about its placement right here is actually that York was called the bywash at one point. What that meant was when they were building the canal, they actually dug up all of York to kind of branch the water off while they were building the canal. So this entire street was just a river at one point. They would do their fishing, their cleaning of their clothes and all of that just in the middle of the street. When the canal was finished, they actually put all the dirt back and now it's a road again. So very cool, but that's all the fountain represents, is kind of a time when we didn't have running water. We're gonna kind of head up here. Normally I'd stop on that corner and start talking about the embassy there, but I'm not feeling like standing there today, so we'll go around.
Okay.
That corner is always awkward, so I'm trying something different today. To the second of 4 courtyards.
Okay.
Now this one is called Jeanne d'Arc Courtyard, also known as the Dancing Bear, and we're about to see why it's called the Dancing Bear Courtyard.
Okay.
So Jeanne d'Arc Courtyard is one of the quieter courtyards in the market, and it's a good place to come and eat because it's so beautiful and stuff like that. Most people who are here and live here call it the Dancing Bear Courtyard because of our friend right here. Now the Dancing Bear was actually made in 1999. The artist says he is actually playing, he's not dancing, but it's called the Dancing Bear, so that's what we're going with. Now what was cool about the artist is he's from Nunavut. He was an Aboriginal artist who would come here to sell his art when he couldn't hunt. So like when it was out of season or whatever, he would come here and sell little statues on the Byward Market as a vendor. We were also the first province to get an artist from another province to give us a statue. Now before, we would kind of be all selfish and be like, no, if we're from Ontario, we need an Ontario artist to do something. This was the first time we got someone from elsewhere to do it. Now the reason why it's called Jeanne d'Arc Courtyard is because of this lovely building behind us. Now before this building burnt down, it was actually a school. It was called Jeanne d'Arc School for Girls. Now the reason why we had a school for girls here was because a lot of young ladies were coming to Ottawa from England and from like different places by themselves. They didn't have their parents. They specifically didn't have any men with them. And that was not okay with the old white men who were living on the other side of town. They needed a place for them to learn how to be nice little ladies. So they set up this school here in conjunction with the church, and this is where they were taught how to be nice little ladies. When it burned down, you could actually still see signs that said things like you can't wear your dressing gown downstairs after a certain point in time and things like that. So it was pretty cool. Now it did burn down about 50 years ago, which you'll hear me say burned down a lot. We have a lot of problems with fires. It just happens. When they rebuilt it, they actually decided to stick with the design before it was a school. So most of the buildings in the market would have been a store underneath and then hotels up above. So that's kind of the design they went with. Would look kind of like this gray building right here, actually. Most of the stones you see that are that gray are actually from the early 1900s. So if you see them around the market, that's where it's from. Now you'll also notice that we have buildings like this one right here, where yes, you have the old stone on the outside, but there's new stone in the middle. That is because when the buildings burned down, instead of getting rid of all this nice brick that's, you know, historically accurate, we try to keep it as close as possible. So we scrape out everything that burned and then build on the inside. Yeah. Same thing happened with this guy, but you can't see which wall they kept because it's on the rear corner over there. But yeah. They try to keep it as close to historically accurate as possible, because instead of just having one historical building, the entire market is actually a historical place. So we have a lot of weird bylaws. Now the statue to our left was actually designed to represent the school for girls. We're not sure why it's a girl dancing. It wasn't a dance school at all, but it's a very nice statue nonetheless. Now this picture on my left is how the arts courtyards usually look. So it would be a painting or a photograph, and then right next to it an explanation on why it's here, who did it, what was the purpose of it, all that kind of fun stuff. Now this one has actually been up since last summer. It has survived the winter. We're not sure why the other paintings weren't put up this year, and we're not sure why this one was never taken down. Just, I guess, got missed or something. So when I was doing the tours at Winterlude, the snow was halfway up the painting.
Wow.
And then there we go. So, to my right is the U.S. Embassy. Now, the
Yes.
U.S. Embassy is actually pretty cool because it is the only one that was dedicated to a city. Most of our other embassies are dedicated
سفارة ديال أمريكا US Embassy ambassade des États-Unis.
We're not sure why. It was before 9/11, so we don't know why, but he was cool enough to get it. So, yeah. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot of security around the building and that the street looks a little funny up here. That is so that you cannot hit the embassy head on. So there's the little donut in the middle, and then there's the triangle, and the 3 sets of barricades. Now, even if you theoretically could hit the embassy head on, you would have to get through 3 sets of little barrels. You'd have to get through 2 sets of iron doors, and then people with guns on the inside. Now, instead of getting security officers from Canada, like all the other embassies, the U.S. actually flies in their own Marines to take care of their embassies. Now, say you wanted to go in to get your visa done or just visit or something like that, you actually have to tell them ahead of time, and you cannot bring your bags with you. You can have nothing on you except your telephone, and even your telephone has to be turned off and locked in a locker before you can do anything with it. So, if you were thinking of going, just giving you a heads up because they do not tell you about the bags ahead of time, so you have to panic and find somewhere to put it. Okay. You want to spread out? He's going to one of his busking spots. He's one of our market buskers. He and his dog are here almost every day, honestly. Now we are on Clarence. Clarence is where I find anyone who wants to eat, but they're not sure where they want to eat or what kind of food. That is because Clarence is all restaurants, basically.
Okay.
There are a few odd shops that aren't, but most of them are restaurants. Now, it wasn't always the best place to be.
Yes.
In the 1800s, this was the party street in the market.
Oh,
This is
okay.
where all of our workers would come to spend all of their money. So specifically our lumberjacks. You see, as a lumberjack, you would get all of your money for the entire year at once. Like one giant lump sum. And what would you do when you got all of your money at once? Apparently you'd come here and party and spend it all. So they would get in fights, especially with the other side of town, which hated them because they were too rich. And they would set things on fire, which is why we had a lot of fires. That's also why we have so many branches of police here in Ottawa. Now, it's no longer dangerous, but this was kind of the beginning of why we have so much security. We have the OPP, we have the Ottawa Police, we have bike cops, we have security guards, we have the RCMP that roam around here, fire trucks, ambulances, all of that fun stuff. Again, not as dangerous as it once was. It's just they set up their offices here and never left. So.
But it was expensive, remember?
Got everyone. Now, if you wanted to do an escape room in the market, we do have 4 different escape rooms here.
Okay.
We have a Jigsaw, which is right here.
Okay.
Escape Manor, which is on York. Amaze, which is on Murray. And Amnesia, which is on Clarence.
Oh.
Now, I always tell people if you really want to do an escape room and one is booked up, you will find one of them that will take you.
Okay.
Okay? We have enough that not all the rooms can be booked at once.
Why?
We don't know why they all kind of settled here.
Okay.
We think it's because it's a big tourist area, but we're not particularly sure why.
Okay.
And they've only popped up in the last few years too.
Okay.
So it's been quite strange, but people seem to enjoy them.
Of course.
Beautiful gray and red building right there. She's there. So that is the Chateau Lafayette. It is the oldest
Lafayette,
bar in Ottawa. It has been here since 1849. And it's changed things kind of when it first started out as St. Paul. But they try to keep the architecture design as close as possible. Place to go and go drink. Upstairs, what used to be a hotel is now perfect. Still pretty cool place to go. They usually have live music. And then they play the sports games. And now we are at the main market building. So behind me is the main market building. It was actually built in 1927. Now you may be asking yourself, if the market started in 1826, why is this building so young? That is because it has burned down 4 times since we first built it. It took us 101 years to figure out that wood was not the best building material. Now the building actually used to span all the way to Clarence Street, which was the street we were just on. But as time went on, it got shorter and shorter, and then they separated into 2, where we had our vendors on this side, and then the people selling livestock like cattle and stuff on this side. You now can't have livestock in the market except for one exception, which we'll talk about a little later on the tour. But the building itself is really cool. You can go inside and look at the vendors or all around. Our vendors who are outside arrive at 8 a.m. for our fruits and vegetable vendors, and then 9 a.m. for our arts and crafts vendors. They usually stay here until about 5 or 6, depending on the day or how they feel. They're their own bosses. They can kind of leave whenever they feel like it. We're going to talk about Moulin de Provence, but we're going to move a little off the corner so that we can do that. Back of the market building, you might notice Obama's face there. And you might be wondering, it's Canada. Why is Obama's face on one of their buildings? That is because in 2009, Obama came to visit Ottawa. And I might have mentioned, the States has a lot of security in general. And so when a president would like to visit us, they actually have to plan their visit 3 months in advance to make sure there's no bombs, do all the sweeping and all that kind of stuff. Obama was like, cool, you have a plan, that's great. I'm just going to go to the Byward Market. So he actually ditched all of his security guards and came to the market to go shopping, which was a big deal because everyone was freaking out. Because all of a sudden there was thousands of security guards here looking for the president. He bought a cookie, and it has forever been called the Obama cookie. 10 years later, they're still calling it that. It is a very nice sugar cookie, but it is still just a sugar cookie. They do have great baked goods, so I'm not demeaning that. I'm just saying. Maybe we don't have to call it the Obama cookie anymore. It's been a few years. I like the story more than the cookie. The cookie's very good though.
Yes.
I like their gingerbread
We'll
better.
taste it.
Now, if you were to go down William Street, you would actually find the first beaver tails that ever existed. So the beaver tails actually started in the market and has branched out since then. Because we have the very first one that ever came into existence, we also have the only savory flavor to a beaver tail. So you can actually get a garlic and cheese one out there, which no other beaver tail stand has, because we're the original and it was the owner's favorite. So, yeah. Now, beside me, we have the Starbucks. Now, I'm not going to talk about it because it's a Starbucks, because that would be really boring. I'm actually going to talk about it because it is the site of Stony Monday. So September 19, 1849, Lord Elgin was coming to visit us because he wanted to decide whether Montreal or Ottawa should be the capital of Canada. Now, the French and Irish workers who were over here thought that was a great idea. They really wanted this to be the capital. The English people on the other side of town hated that idea. They didn't like it at all. So while the French and Irish people were having a party over here to celebrate, all of the English people came down and they started throwing rocks at each other. They kept doing that until one man ended up dead. Now, he's not important enough to know his name apparently because he was poor, but he did die that day, and ever since then it's been called Stony Monday. Yeah. So, not because it's a Starbucks. I wonder if they know I tell everyone someone died. I don't know if they would like that. Oh well.
Yeah, it's in downtown.
We still might need like 100 beers.
Now across the street, you see this large hotel right here, the Audace.
Audace.
See its brown sign up there? Right underneath there is actually a bar. You can go get a drink and look over. It's one of the best views in Ottawa. It is very expensive though. So I always tell people, if you want to see the view, get maybe like one drink and then go to a different bar. Because it's very expensive, but a very pretty view.
Like how expensive?
Like very.
Like
So
20 bucks a drink?
about that, yes. 15 to 20. Now downstairs is actually also a Michelin star restaurant, so also very nice, but the drinks upstairs are very expensive. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to keep doing some clothing shopping, good places to go are all the way down the street. You'll find a big yellow building there with a few different eclectic shops. They're very nice to go shopping in, so they're also part of the fashion night that's tonight. But the reason why we actually stop here is because I mentioned livestock is not allowed to be in the market except in one place, and that is Cundale Stables. If you were to continue down York in that direction, you would find John Cundale. He is the third in his family to be raising horses in the market. Now, the reason why he's allowed to continue raising his horses here is because they actually set up here before the bylaw said you couldn't. So as long as they never move, they could keep raising horses here for as long as they want. So you'll occasionally see him either walking the big horses with the carriage behind it, or walking the ponies around on a leash. Yes, he's the only one allowed in the market because you can't have livestock in highly populated areas anymore. It's just a health hazard. But he's still allowed because he's been here, and as long as he never moves, he can keep doing this forever. Yeah. Now we're gonna go up Dalhousie. Dalhousie's a really weird street because it's got a lot of mixed things there, so it's really hard to talk about. But we need to take it to go somewhere else. It's a nice place to go. It's just there's not a common theme. I can't be like it's the restaurant street because we have a restaurant street. It's strange. I also don't know why the Institut Canadien Français is under construction. That's upstairs here. But it has been for the past month. So that's also strange. Like I was saying, weird street. There's a Shoppers Drug Mart here. The Institut Canadien Français is on the corner. That's about to be a dental hygiene school. There's just nothing really tying this street together. Still a very good place to go, but hard to talk about. About Ottawa that we don't understand why it happened is we are the capital of shawarmas in Canada. Perfect, cool. So, across the street, I'll wait for this truck to move. Across the street, you'll see that beautiful spire up there. It's kind of copper-like toned. That is St. Bridget's Church. Now, it used to be an Irish Catholic church back in the day, but it was actually deconsecrated about 20 years ago, and it's now a bar. So if you've ever wanted to drink alcohol in a church, you can go to St. Bridget's and drink in their basement. It's pretty cool. It's a nice place to go. It's still pretty on the outside. Looks like a church, but no longer a church. Now, the reason why we point St. Bridget's out is because they actually put themselves there on purpose. They wanted to be as far away from the basilica as humanly possible. So the basilica we'll actually go see in a little more detail when we go over there. But yeah, they purposely separated themselves to be as far away from each other as possible. Basilica just happened to be for the English people on the other side of town. And so they were allowed to go on Saturdays, which again is expensive. Over here we have La Crystal Nail Spa. Now the reason why we point this one out is because this is how the rich English people would have been living in around the 1830s. They would have had their nice house in the back here, then their horses would have lived in that little space in the middle there, and then their servants would have been in the front quarters. So that's the way it would have been broken down. I try not to stand in front of their window because I'm very bright and it distracts people. So that's why I stand way over here for it. But now a little later in the early 1900s, it would have switched into this for the richer part of town. There would have been buildings that looked more like this. Yes. These other farm vegetable vendors are actually from the CRA family. They're cousins who, like, their parents came and their parents, grandparents.
It's all family things.
Sisters. So next to me is the Coven. The Coven was actually just put in sometime this winter. It is a hard rock bar, but they have really good burgers and stuff as well. Pretty cool place. street, we have the office of the Royal Canadian Mint. They don't really do anything there other than like office-y things, but we like to point them out nonetheless because we don't actually get to see the mint on the tours. So. To my right, we have Montavani's. And what's cool about Montavani's is we are the only ones in North America to have a Montavani's. In order to open this gelato store, you actually have to go to Italy and train with the Montavani family to open one. So the two owners, the husband and wife, they actually went there and trained to be able to open it. We were almost the first ones to get one out of Italy completely, but we were beat by like a month by London, England. But it's still a cool place to go. We have another gelato one down the street that's also very good. So we have a lot of gelato and ice cream in the market. It's very nice. Across the street from me, you'll see a bunch of just backs of bars. Now the reason for that is if you went on the other side, there's a giant gate that says Irish Village. Irish Village is a congregation of 4 different Irish pubs. During the day, they are different bars with different menus, different drink menus. At night, after 10 o'clock, you pay $5, you can go to all of the bars. They are packed on St. Paddy's Day. We don't know why they come together as well because they're all different owners, but it's cool. We also have a lot of Irish pubs, but that was because we had a lot of Irish people. Houses down there beside that building. That is legalized. They needed a place to actually take care of sick people. Now it's no longer a church, no longer run by the church, and it's also no longer a hospital. They only do elder care there. So like people who are at the end of their lives and stuff like that, it's just too small to be an actual hospital. Especially since Ottawa just hit its 1 million person mark this year. So there's just too many people. But Briere still does elder care. This is the other gelato place I was talking about. This is Piccolo Grande. Also very good. Their styles are a little different in their flavor. So Piccolo Grande does a little more anymore because there are streets and cars. But that was the idea, was you could walk right through the market. Now, on the corner there, what's cool about that building, the little red brick one, is that so you basically teach people how to use tools they would need to get into the fashion designing world. That's pretty cool. And right next to it is the Earl of Essex, which is a nice old bar. A little pricey because it's on Sussex, but not bad. Very good. So,
What about the building over there?
peacekeeping monument. So all of the things carved into the side are missions that Canada was peacekeeping in. So like during the times of war and stuff like that. Now, if you actually looked at the engravings carefully, you would notice that some of the dates are changed or altered or recarved. That is for 2 reasons. One, like I said, Canada is really bad at writing things down. So we carved in dates, and then we realized we were wrong and had to go fix them. So that's one reason. And then the second reason is that some of the groups said that they were there longer in order to look better than they were. So we fact-checked them later and realized we had to go fix it on the monument. So that's the 2 reasons. I'm not going to tell you which ones did which, but if you were to actually look at the numbers, you would be able to do the math. Now, behind this truck that is in my way is the National Gallery of Canada. So you remember where it started on Sussex? That is its home now. It has 4,000 pieces of art. Right now their special exhibit is on Gauguin. It's his portraits. A lot of them are basically selfies of himself with his own paintings painted in the background, which is interesting, but very cool to look at nonetheless. Most of our museums try to do a special exhibit for the summer just to keep everyone interested in stuff like that, but that's theirs. Now out front, kind of can't see her, but there's a giant spider out front. Her name is Mama. Mama is one of 7 spiders in the world. The artist actually made them for her mother. Inside the back of Mama are 26 marbles to represent children. We do not know why there's 26. She did not have 26 children, but she had like 3, I think it was. But here we are with 26 marbles. Now, 6 of these statues are permanent statues. We have one of the permanent ones. There's one in the States, there's one in France, there's one in Kuwait, things like that. There is one that they actually pack up and move every year and bring to a new location. Now last year, it was in Mexico. They packed it up this year and have yet to bring it anywhere, so I'm still waiting to see where it's going, but she's going somewhere. But we're lucky enough to have one of the permanent ones, which is pretty cool. Now, across the street is the Notre Notre Dame Basilica. It is that beautiful giant church right there. Now, if you get married there, you do have to book it 3 years in advance. So they always say pick your date before you pick your date. There's also a lot of cancellations there. Now, normally when there's a wedding, they will ring that bell obnoxiously long, and that is because they are allowed to. As long as you are a religious entity in Canada, you can ring a bell for as long as you want, and if someone complains, you can just be like, it's for religious reasons, you can't bother me, and they have to leave. So when there's a wedding, you can hear it from all the way down the other side of the market. You're like, someone just got married, okay. Right now, I'm pretty sure it's open. I didn't see anyone doing wedding things today, so yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, if you were to continue down this way, we actually have another embassy on the right, which is the Embassy of Kuwait. And then on the left, we have the rest is done in Vancouver. After we got the plastic money, that's when we moved it to Vancouver. But we still make the coins there, which is pretty cool. Now we're going to head kind of to our last spot on the tour. But yeah, as I walk, I'll explain why the roof is so shiny on the basilica. So the roof was actually redone about a year ago, and you'll notice that it was done in a different material than all the other roofs in Ottawa. All of our other fancy buildings have copper on the roof. The reason why the basilica does not is because they don't like the green color that it turns when it oxidizes. So you'll notice, like the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty is not supposed to be green. It hasn't been cleaned in a while. So that's what all of our other roofs turn, including the Parliament. It turns a green color when it oxidizes. You can kind of see one of them on here. They've redone most of the roofs, but one of them is. Now, Basilica didn't like that. And so it was kind of a sky blue color. So instead, they chose tin. Now when tin oxidizes, it turns a nice blue color. So that's kind of what they wanted. So this is the third of 4 courtyards. This is Tin House Courtyard. Now before we get into why it's called Tin House Courtyard, I'm gonna get this guy out of the way. So this one actually showed up in the middle of my tour one day. It was real fun because the artist wouldn't tell me what it meant. He was just like, you have to wait for a plaque. Well, now I've got my plaque, so I know what it means. So this is our shepherds. It is supposed to represent how the higher class takes advantage of the lower class. Like workers and stuff like that. So the higher class are the shepherds and everyone else are the sheep. Now the reason why the nose is so long is to represent Pinocchio and how he lies all the time. It's also supposed to represent a shepherd's hook. Now the reason why he's blue is because it's supposed to make you think more. Or at least that's what the artist says. I don't know if that's true, but I like the color, so
I like the color
I'm not
too.
mad at it.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it makes you think more like he said. But yeah, that's our shepherds. Now behind you is the reason for Tin House Courtyard. So there was a man, his name was Honoré Foisy, and his whole family were tinsmiths, including himself. And he wanted to show how good at making tin he was. And he decided to make the entire facade of his house out of tin. And this is a recreation of what he would have had, so it would have been the gray brick right next to that. So this was a giant advertisement for him, basically, which was pretty fun. And ever since then, this has been called Tin House Courtyard. Most of our tin that's actually in the market was done by the Fuzzy family. We also have another building, if you continue down North Dow, that's trimmed in red. All of the red is actually painted tin from the Fuzzy family. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so this kind of marks the end of the tour. But I am walking back to York if you guys would like to come with me, or I can direct you wherever you guys need to go. I'm cool with whatever. But thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.